In today's world, everyone just can't get their hands off the phone, right? And the thing that powers the phone is actually the apps, the different apps that you use on a daily basis. And today I have probably the biggest company that makes all these apps for a lot of big companies, not just in Malaysia, but also overseas as well. This company is called Agmo Holdings Bhd. And I'm honored to have the CEO and founder of the company, Mr. Tan Aik Keong, or better known as AK, to be on the show. Before we start, this podcast is also available on Spotify. If you would like to just hear the voice version, don't forget to go on Spotify and check out the FAQ show. AK, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
So I was briefly looking at your background, and since you graduated in 2008, you started your career in Panasonic R&D Center in Malaysia.
Yep.
And then 3 years later, you founded Agmo Studio, right, together with your co-founders. Now, what's interesting is that from a researcher in Panasonic, you took part in a reality show called Make the Pitch. It's kind of like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den in the West, like that, right? And in the competition, you won 300,000 ringgit, and that kind of funded your startup at that point in time. Do you still remember what pitch you made in the competition?
Definitely. So it was the reality show, right? So I think it's very interesting because you hardly see this kind of entrepreneur pitch show on the TV. So back then, everyone was just started to talk about iPhone 2.0 and Android 1.6. So at that time, the idea they were pitching is called Masa 2. Masa 2 is a Malay word called Masa itu. Essentially, this is a location-based time capsule. So what it means is basically write something into a paper, put into a bottle, then you bury into the earth. Then you say 10 years later, we come and take this out and see what we have written. Same concept as we want to duplicate in the digital world. So idea is you create a post just like your Facebook, your Instagram, then you put in image, you put in text, you put in videos. Then after that, you have to set a defined timing. So for example, 10 years later, only you can open it, and where you can only open it in KLCC together with who. So these are the things that you can define. So it's quite a cool idea that I think back then so that basically we pitched that.
What was the intention of creating Masa 2?
Back then, Facebook was just like about started in 2008. So I think Facebook is something cool that we want to make social networking even more cool. So that's basically we put in some of the more interesting elements, transforming something that we used to do in a traditional way into a digital ways. But of course, idea being ideas, whether it's sustainable is another problem. But somehow, at least this idea made us become one of the 3 winners that successfully got the funding from MyEG.
Right. I suppose this is like a MVP, right? Minimum viable product for you to launch future technology initiative in the future. Like, for example, I think location-based, time-based, we have seen it today in games like Pokemon Go, for example, right? You need to go to a certain location, then only you are able to capture a certain type of Pokemon.
Correct.
So I suppose it's the same technology. And I suppose somebody copy it and then commercialize it.
No, I hope Pokemon copy us, but then of course no, they are very innovative. One thing that we do it quite interesting, we also use augmented reality, just like Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go, you use your camera to catch a Pokemon, right? Likewise, we also have a location-based, something like a treasure hunt, so that when you're nearby, you have a digital compass, so you can see where is a time capsule, so that you can basically, when you are walking nearer, then you can see some sort of a gamification effects. That's basically the experience that we're trying to create.
Right.
Yeah, and we have been doing that since 2012, and Pokemon Go only used AR about 2016 or 17, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so you did this in 2011, but if you have taken off, today you would have been a different animal, right?
Yeah, I think, of course, one thing that we are doing is a B2C mobile applications, which is a different game compared to B2B in this part of the world. If the same thing maybe you do it in Silicon Valley, we will have a different receptions. In Malaysia, it's talking about the chicken and egg, right? So whether you have a product, you make money first or you get user first. But of course, if you don't have user, they have to burn money to get users, and likewise. So I think that's why it's not sustainable. So we built that, basically we launched, we don't call it MVP, I call it MMP, minimum marketable product. When talk about minimum marketable product, it has a clear value propositions and differentiations compared to others players in the market, such as Facebook, such as Twitter. So I think these are the things that we have managed to build a product, but go to market is difficult. Yeah, it's difficult.
So in that competition, Make the Pitch, MyEG was the main sponsor at that time. And you managed to win 300,000 ringgit for as a seed fund. Let's call it a seed fund. Right?
Yeah, maybe more like a pre-seed fund. It's more like an idea back then. Yeah.
Right. But when I look at your prospectus, right, MyEG Capital owns 25.8% of the company. So did they also funded your business after the competition?
No, so that was the only time. We only did one round of fundraising, which is with MyEG's back then, 300,000.
Okay. Oh, so because you won the 300,000, so MyEG Capital became a shareholder of the
Oh,
company.
yeah. MyEG Capital was our shareholder since the first day of our company.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
We are more familiar with MyEG businesses, right? They are the flagship e-government solutions and service provider. In fact, come to think of it, right, since they are also a shareholder in Agmo Studio, how much of MyEG's products and services are actually co-developed together with Agmo Studio?
So some of the products that we have been building with MyEG, for example, back then there is a e-wallet called iPay They've got the Bandagala e-money license. Other than that, we also have built things like NFT Pangolin, which is the NFT marketplace. Then we also involved in the fleet management system called Pasty and things like that. But those are smaller scale projects, except there's one that we have a joint venture called Zetrix. Zetrix is first and only blockchain under Malaysia blockchain infrastructures with MooMoo. It's very interesting. It's a layer 1 blockchain. Unlike some other blockchain could be layer 2, like Polygon and so on, right?
Cool.
When talk about is a layer 1 blockchain, means we have everything in the ecosystem. We have our own smart contract programming language, and we have our programming IDE as well, something like Remix equivalent for Ethereum. Then we have our different kind of things that we can build on top of. Just like imagine Ethereum, but then we are more green compared to Ethereum due to we are using a different consensus algorithm called Byzantine fault tolerance together with dedicated proof of stake. But I think generally the very, very different compared to others is Zetrix is basically the only blockchain that focus a lot in terms of the government to government collaborations. But a lot of blockchains that talk about things like B2C use cases. You use it to buy NFT and things like that. Those are very B2C driven. But Zetrix is designed to be an enterprise grade blockchains. So that's why some of the use cases you have seen we are launching Zetrix, including the collaboration with China governments to basically to do the customs certificate of origin clearance, because Malaysia and China, we are all part of this largest free trade agreement in the world known as RCEP, right? RCEP is basically 10 countries in Southeast Asia together with China, Japan, Korea, and also Australia and New Zealand. So with that, when we are part of these free trade agreements countries, then you want to have your export and import much more streamlining, so that using blockchain technologies can actually help in terms of this custom clearance. So these are the new things that people haven't done it before. So basically we bring those G2G use cases into the blockchain, which will be first of its kind in the ecosystem.
Well, Zetrix is definitely one of the very exciting areas that you're working on. I think we will come to that in details a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I just want to bring it back to MyEG a little bit, because this is a little bit exciting, especially for investors in Malaysia market, right? I noticed that MyEG Capital pared down their stakes from 25.8% during the prospectus, and in FY 2023, it went down to 4.4%. But the key man of MyEG, TS Wong, he has a direct interest of 3.3%. As per your annual report. So does that mean that the future of Agmo doesn't synergize with MyEG anymore, but it's still very relevant to TS Wong on his personal capacity?
TS and MyEG, they plays a role as a financial investors. So I think pretty much Atmo has been growing quite independently throughout the past. If you read our prospectus, our top 5 clients are people like Petronas and so on. Those are pretty much very corporate and MNC driven. But because TS being a good mentor, as in he has been investing in our company since 2012. So with his vast insight about and experience about technology world. So sometimes his advice actually helps in terms of helping us to a certain extent. But that's more on the beginning side. Yeah.
Okay, so today he doesn't really involve in your business operation.
Yeah, so TS and MyEG, they didn't sit in our board. If you read our prospectus, they are not in our board as well.
Yeah. Right, okay. Coming back to Zetrix, right? At the end of last year, 2023, China started to use this blockchain to come up with the digital version of identification card and also driving license for the Chinese citizen to use it overseas. It sounds very vague to me. Can you explain a little bit about this particular utility?
I think generally why you want to use blockchain to do that is basically just like Bitcoin, the user owns a private key, not the banks, right? So unlike your bank balance stored in the bank central database, whereas in the Bitcoin environments, you own a private key, you decide who you want to transfer to and things like that. Likewise, in the digital identity world, there is something called self-sovereign identities, SSI, and also verifiable credentials. To put that in a simple word, is basically you own the identity, not the government own the identity. But governments, that as an enforcer, they need to verify whether your driving license is still valid or not, things like that. Of course, there will be facility to help things like using QR code to scan, to validate. But you own the data, not the governments, right? So likewise, in China, basically, they want to adopt this technology to store this kind of those important credentials, verifiable credentials, things like IC, driving license, degree certificates, luxury goods product certificates, and things like that. So that, of course, the other thing is about interoperability, because blockchain is talking about you can easily do data interchange among different blockchains compared to the centralized system, which is normally more proprietary and not that easy to integrate. So I think China governments adopt that is due to all these reasons. Yeah.
Now, the first word that comes to me when somebody mentions the word China is centralization.
Yeah.
But this blockchain technology, it's all about decentralization.
Correct.
So why would the Chinese government want to do these kind of things?
Okay, so I think first thing first, China is basically using permission blockchains infrastructures. Why we add something called permission in front is basically whoever you want to join as a nodes in the ecosystem, you need to get permissions from other committees. So that's basically a permission blockchains, which means you need to get a permission in order to host a nodes to do a data synchronizations. Unlike public blockchain like Ethereum's Bitcoin, you just basically install the nodes clients, then you can basically get the full ledgers of blockchain already. So there's a difference between the permission blockchain and the public permissionless blockchain.
Right.
So China is pursuing those with a permission blockchain. So at the same time, so again, it has a characteristic and benefits of using a blockchain. At the same time, it has a certain level of controls, at least can control who can join the networks.
Oh, so does it mean that not everybody can buy the Zetrix token and only certain people is able to acquire a stake in it?
Okay, so China, they have their own blockchain called Xinhua and something. So basically, Xinhua and Zetrix are two different blockchains.
Okay.
So we Zetrix integrated as a super node talk to Xinhua. So Xinhua, they are their own ecosystem. What we enable here is basically using a super node as a middleman to do data interchange, to do the cross-blockchain interoperability, right?
Cross-blockchain means potentially for Xinhua to interact with overseas blockchains.
Correct. That's basically via these supernodes. So Zetrix has been hosted this supernode to talk to Xinhua. So China, no way you can use cryptocurrency and NFT, right? These are forbidden. It's banned in China. So what they allow is using blockchain, not using cryptocurrency. So it's a different. Whereas Zetrix, we are a public blockchains. Basically, we have Zetrix just like Ether and Ethereum is for you to pay gas fee whenever there's any transactions. Yeah. So I hope I answered questions.
I'm still a little bit blurred because while I say that it is not publicly traded in terms of Zetrix token, but it is still listed on some of the exchanges.
Okay. Yeah. So Zetrix has launched our IEO, Initial Exchange Offering, just like IPO equivalent. So that's on the primary market in CoinStore or Singapore. So after that, when it is launched, then it go to a secondary market, right? So there are a couple of exchange. Actually, you can buy Zetrix in those exchanges.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's publicly available. It's not really restricted. Just that in Malaysia, we have 5 approved digital asset exchange, right? But in order for this exchange to support Zetrix, that have to go through some approval from Security Commission as well. So that's why you haven't seen Zetrix being traded in the local digital asset exchange.
Does it have infinite supply like Bitcoin like that? Or is it like Ethereum where it is unlimited supply?
We model against Bitcoin, so it's very similar against Bitcoin.
Oh,
yeah.
So you also have 21 million?
We have 2.1 billion, if I'm not
2.1 billion?
Yeah.
Okay. And I noticed that Zetrix price is just going up.
Yeah.
Online only.
Yeah. Our IEO is $5. Like today is
today is 14, more than 14. Do you know how many wallets are owning Zetrix token today?
It's public info. If you go to this explorer.zetrix.com, then you can see how many wallets are there. I don't have a definite number. I guess tens of thousands. Yeah.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah. And you can see all the transactions there as well. So you can see it's very active, that people has been using Zetrix for different purposes.
Okay. And what is the future roadmap for Zetrix?
I'm not the best person to answer, so of course TS will be the best person. But generally, we think we will be focusing a lot in terms of enterprise applications. So I think G2G collaboration and all that makes a lot of sense, especially those related to the RCEP free trade agreement, right? So digital identifiers and the custom clearance and also other things. So these are the use cases. Yeah.
Okay, so my EG is the product owner of Zetrix. And then Agmo Holdings is the project manager of this blockchain, right?
Yeah.
So apart from getting a fee from MyEG to manage the project, is there any other ways for you to monetize on this project itself?
To us, it's not about the fee that we are looking more on the long-term return in a way because we can exchange the fee in a stack in the Zetrix, which is 5%, where we believe this 5% could worth quite substantially in the futures. Because we feel that this Zetrix, that we have a very unique proposition compared to other public blockchains like Solana, Ethereum, and so on. So Zetrix, it play in a different world. So it's very unique that you don't see too much of competitors in that space. So that's why we see in the longer run that we might be exercising to convert our fee into this 5% stack in Zetrix so that we can get some sort of the long-term gain. Maybe this Zetrix could be an IPO by itself or whatever. Yeah.
You were using the term Zetrix stack?
I mean, just a company we can convert into 5% equity, shareholding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So coming back to your core business, right?
Yeah.
I think you have more than 100 over clients today, including government agencies, KLCI companies, even Fortune 500 companies are your clients as well.
Yeah.
And it seems that all these big organizations will go to you naturally because of your capabilities and all that. But I also noticed that 80% of your revenues come from Malaysia. And we all know that in the Malaysian economy, right, the major part of the driver of the economy is actually SMEs. But the products, it gives me the impression that it's for the big organizations. So how do you plan to penetrate into the smaller SME space in Malaysia?
Yeah, I agree with you to a certain extent. Malaysia is pretty much driven by SME. So 97% of registered business are SME, right? That account to about 1.2 billion of businesses.
Correct.
So there are a lot of them. So of course, when talk about SME, they are normally more cost conscious. Then secondly, they normally don't too much can afford the CapEx model, the high capital expenditures. More of them, they hope to go for things like software as a service, as an OpEx model or subscription models, things like that. So that's why you see this year we have been launching 3 subsidiary or joint ventures that personally I think is quite exciting. The first are basically called a Tak Reply. It's a generative AI companies.
Tak Reply.
Suta Reply, sorry.
Oh, Tak Reply.
Tak
Okay.
Reply, yeah. So this generative AI companies is basically a chatbots powered by large language model. So chatbot has been around for very, very long time. But the old chatbot are pretty much based on some rule-based programming. So that's why some of the chatbot is quite a bit stupid sometimes. Okay, because it basically, if you answer anything out of their scope, then they just don't know. Correct. I think that's a typical impression we have with the chatbot. So they tend to talk to people, we don't talk to the chatbot for these reasons. But due to OpenAI, they created ChatGPT with all these large language model, so it have changed the technology totally. So with this Tak Reply technologies, basically what we want to do is to help businesses to solve 2 things. The first thing are basically, in the organization, you have a lot of policies, you have a lot of SOP and so on. Then a lot of times you want your customer service to read all this. It's very difficult. Of course, human being human, our brain has limitation, right? And sometimes you have a new divisions and they are not aware, so they might answer their clients wrongly due to using the outdated information. So with that, basically now with the AI, you can basically train the AI using machine learning. You throw all this PDF, policy, SOP inside, then the AI will pick out all this using a technique called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation AI. So it will answer everything just like a human. Yeah, absorbing all this knowledge database. So we have built some of the sample product like the Budget 2024. So it's in our Facebook as well. So you can ask Facebook Messenger, is there anything for EV user? is there anything for SME about in budget 2024? So it can help you to filter all those like maybe 100 pages of the budget papers and tell you exactly the answer. You don't have to do a control find and find a keyword. So that's the differentiation with the IAG. So that's first part. First part is more like the knowledge database, where the second part could be talking about the in-depth integrations. Let's say a hotel booking system, HR system, and things like that. So let's say the first part, they are talking about they want to do something, maybe transactions to book a hotel. Then we can basically use the second part to integrate to that system. So that's basically the things that we want to solve using this generative AI company that reply. This is targeting SME on the subscription model. So it's a low capex model. It's not, there's a small customization fee together with the OpEx based on the number of conversations and things like that.
So if I get this correctly, right? So let's say today I'm a SME and I want to have customer service. So I just subscribe to your reply.
Yeah.
Right? I just subscribe to it, and then I will have sort of like a framework, and I will train the AI on all the replies that the people may ask lah.
Yeah.
Right. And then from there, I just put it on the system, integrate it into my web page or whatever. As and when people ask questions, this AI is able to give accurate answers to the customers.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And the good thing about our chatbot is omni-channel. So nowadays, client will come to you from everywhere, right? Could be WhatsApp, Telegrams, everywhere. So basically, but the good thing is these are just channels. So you can support omni-channel presence for the chatbot. Behind the scene, you only have a single backend. Yeah.
Right. How much ROI are you targeting for this product?
Still quite preliminary for us to talk about ROI first, but I think generally we feel this will be something quite substantial, especially it can help us to build out our recurring revenue streams in long run.
Because it is subscription model, right? It's not a one-off. Currently, most of your revenue is one-off, right?
Okay, so I think talking about this news, of course, we have a few business segments, right? The first are basically our bespoke digital solution development. That's one-off at the same time. It's also recurring in a sense that because we are building a lot of core system for some of the clients. So whenever every year they have new budget to enhance that. Then secondly, we also have a software as a service or call it digital platform-based services, where this generative AI services is also part of it, together with other cool things like Atmo EV and so on. Those are another very sexy things that I love. Then followed by we also work with those big cloud provider. We work with the 3A, which is Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, and also Alibaba Cloud together with Huawei to basically resell their clouds. And this year we are basically official AWS select tier partners. In a way, we know AWS is investing big money in Malaysia with the local data centers.
Correct.
Those are very exciting as well. Yeah.
Just now you are talking about the Agmo EV that you love, right?
Yeah.
Basically, this product is one app, and then I'm able to see all the charging station regardless of who is the provider in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Correct. How much have you spent on this project?
Probably about 6 digits. Then
not expensive.
Not that expensive.
Right.
Yeah, not that expensive. But I think the main pain points that we are solving is very big.
If I have an EV, I must download like 3-4 apps just to make sure that I can get a good coverage of where are the charges and things like that.
I think my phones easily we have 30, 40 different kind of EV apps.
Oh, wow.
Well, of course, talking about EV apps, there are 3 categories. The first one basically is a locator, which is very, very important because charge point operator will only list their own network punya chargers, right? So that's why aggregator and a super app are very important. So locators, we have international players, people like PlugShare, those words everywhere in the world. But the problem with PlugShare is their data is not that structured compared to us. For example, in our apps, we allow you to filter charging stations based on who are the charge point operators. If you want to filter by charge EV only, charge CNI only, you can do that in our apps, but not in PlugShare. Then the second one is basically the route planning. Let's say you are driving an EV car with only 200 km capacity. Then how do you go from KL to Penang? You have to plan your route so that you stop somewhere for chargings and things like that. So that's internationally, there is an app called ABRP, a better route planner, interesting name. So ours one, we also have a similar functions. Our differentiation is we have an even more comprehensive EV charging station database. Ours one is specialized in Malaysia market, so I ensure our coverage is good. Then number 3 are those basically you use it for payment purpose. Then you have Gendalis, you have Zhong Charge, you have Charge EV, Charge CNI, and so on. Whereas ours one also we work with about 3 charge point operators that collectively own about more than 100 chargers that you can make payment using our M1 EV super apps. That's basically the pain points that we are solving, so that you then will download 30, 40 different applications. You use Agmo EV super apps, and at the same time, basically due to we have a very niche user base because they are EV users, right? Naturally, we can cross-sell a lot of things which is related to EV users. Give you an example, home solar. So I think being an EV users, I have 2 EV cars, so that's why the TNB bill is quite crazy. With that, basically, naturally, I need to install home solar so that I can offset my TNB bill to a lower one. Then maybe I also want to install additional chargers in my office. These are things that we can naturally cross-sell.
I saw that you have a collaboration with SolarVest, right?
Yeah, I think potential lah.
Potential.
Hopefully it will happen. Yeah.
Hopefully
We are quite exciting.
I've done an interview with SolarVest. If you guys want to know what are they doing actually, you can check out on their video.
Well, yeah, SolarVest is a very good green energy companies. Yeah, you done an interview with them.
Yeah, I done an interview with them. They have great plans. They are
Yeah.
talking about batteries to store the energy, and then they
Yeah.
are also talking about distributing power to EV and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I suppose you will come in as a very good partner for them in this case.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will pan out well in that project as well.
Yes.
Yeah. But I just want to ask, right, why you start this project in Malaysia? Now, why I come to that question is because, yes, EV is very exciting. We're talking about green energy and everyone is sort of going towards this direction. But Malaysia is a very weird place, right? While they want to push EV, but we still give subsidies to petrol. So there's very little motivation for people to say, I want to change to an EV today. And even the government has already said that by 2030, you're talking about a total industry volume of just 15% coming from EV.
Yeah.
Compared to countries like Norway, for example, right? Today,
95%.
95% of their cars are EV.
Yeah.
So my question is, would Malaysia be too small of a market for you to start? Should you go to another place like, let's say, Singapore or, I don't know, maybe Taiwan, or for example?
I think that subsidy will be eventually gradually being removed. You see the government will launch PADU. PADU, the main thing is about want to collect the citizen data so that we are giving the right subsidy to the right people with the right amount. So I think that's very important. So subsequently, I guess a petrol subsidy will be removing, especially those in the T20 and also maybe in the M40, the top tier one. So with that happens, that it makes more sense for the EV adoptions. And of course, the other big thing is just about affordable EV. That's what MITI is trying to push, that Prodra, Proton, they are all launching more affordable EV. Nowadays, you see most of EV due to their completely built out imported overseas, so that's why they have to price it more than 100,000. In the futures, with the local manufacturers or assembler EV, then they will be able to hit a more critical mass market. That's what I believe. So that's why in Agmo EV, the things that we are building is to support roaming. Roaming means the same users that can basically use our Agmo EV apps potentially in Singapore, in Thailand, and so on.
And when do you think will be the right time for you to move out of Malaysia for this particular Agmo EV?
Actually, this year we are already icing one country to support Agmo EV by this year itself, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but probably we will start small first with one of the transport operators in Thailand. We are still selecting the right partners.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your financials, right?
Yeah.
I think your revenue is on an uptrend. Fantastic. But the margins are actually coming down from a net margin of 30% to around just 16%. So that's quite concerning. The reason cited in your report is that because you all did a lot of outsourcing due to gestation period and training of new headcounts. What is the area that you are outsourcing?
So the reason that we are outsourcing could be some of the skill set is relatively rare and we don't have the sufficient capability at the moment. So that's why we have to undergo the gestation period so that we do a upskilling, a reskilling of the employees so we can gradually remove the outsourcing and do it in-house. That's one of the main reasons. Then on the second part is also the headcount. I think in our prospectus, we have 131 headcounts, but today it's just like after about 15 months, now we have more than 230. So we almost double the headcounts. But at the same time, we also need time to ramp up the teams so that it become a revenue generation and so on. So I think that's basically the reasons that our profit margin has been dropping. But revenue has been growing very, very healthy.
Is that the reason why you start Agmo Academy?
To a certain extent, yes. I think, we all know in the technology, it's very, very hard for you to hire the right talents, especially those SME you have tried hiring that talents before. Is very difficult. So I myself and my two co-founders, we are all started as a software developers in 2008. That's why we have been in the industries. Then we know industry definitely we need more talent supplies for those who can do technology developments. So that's why we started this Atmo Academy. Some of the fun facts, actually back then I myself is also a trainer. So I've been teaching people to do iOS programming in Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia.
I see.
So with Agmo Academies, I mean, it has been revenue generating as well, 6 digits, I think okay as a baby in the infancy stage. But the things that we're focusing are 3 things. The first thing, basically we have the Agmo Junior. Agmo Junior are targeting the kids aged 7 years old to 17 years old. That basically we teach them about block-based programming, things that you can drag and drop so achieve some of the programming tasks. It's more on problem solving and to cultivate their interest about programming. So that's one part. On the other hand, that we also have adult trainings. Adult trainings, we focus a lot in terms of those corporate trainings funded by HRDF that about emerging technology such as generative AIs, metaverse, design thinkings, and so on. So that's basically what we do in terms of adult trainings. And lastly is basically we also have a physical center called Agmo Space. It is a ESG team experience center based in Cyberjaya, it's about 3,000 square feet. So idea about Agmo Space is basically when we talk about ESGs, it is very dry, right? There is a lot of policy and things like that. So that's why we think that we want to make ESGs into more fun. So how we do that is basically we use virtual reality and augmented realities to educate people about ESGs. So for example, we created our own contents, we call it Trash Thrower, that educate people about reuse, recycle, and reduce just by throwing the trash to the right recycle bin with some of the gamifications using virtual reality, which is Oculus Quest. So we also partner with people like Alibaba Crowd that bring in things like carbon accounting system, carbon vision dashboard that basically illustrate the carbon emissions of a MMU campus and things like that. There are so many things that we can do with this Agmo space. So that's basically conclude what we do in Agmo Academies.
Right. It's like a science center like that, right?
Yeah, it's a real like science center. In fact, we just hosted Petrol Science also in our Agmo space.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Now, but how I see this Agmo Academy is more like a CSR project to a certain extent, and also maybe to look out for talents to join the company. But I noticed you call it a business segment, which means to say you probably has a vision of how you can grow it into a substantial business that can bring a significant amount of revenue to complement your current business. What is the plan? Because no matter how I see it, I still see it as a CSR project.
So I think in a nutshell, generally, we want to make this academy to be a more scalable approach. How it can be more scalable, of course, will be via partnerships. And in overseas, especially Singapore and other Western countries, they have been teaching programming since the age of maybe 6 or 7, right? So that will gradually happen in Malaysia. And with that happens, basically they will inspire a lot of needs in terms of the kids programming. That's what we believe. So that's why I want to work with those maybe preschool or also daycare center. So you can use things like train the trainer program, just like what I has been doing in 2013. I believe that model works so that we can bring our syllabus or contents into different part of Malaysia, even to the rural areas, so that we can do some sort of licensing models so that will be more scalable with these train the trainer programs, especially when Ministry of Education that officially introduce programming into one of the subjects in the school syllabus. That will totally change the training academies industries. Other than that will be on the adult market. Adult market, basically, definitely you have to start somewhere with the corporate training. Those are basically the low-hanging fruit that we can immediately tackle due to the training could be funded by HRDF and so on. And there's definitely upskilling or reskilling need from the corporates. But at the long run, basically, we can see we can also maybe become a university in the future. So we can be a tech-driven university focusing on emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, metaverse. There are so many exciting things we can do.
Wow, this is a total diversification from your current business model.
I mean, it's an ecosystem because
Ecosystem.
I see academy as the beginning of the ecosystem is a talent supply, right?
It's like a flywheel like that, right? So you train the trainers, the trainer will bring in talent, you can build better products.
Yeah.
Better products will help you to improve the blockchain or whatever software that you're developing. More revenue you can plow back to the academy, and then it just go on and on and on like that.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's how I can picture it today from what you're trying to explain.
Yeah.
Since day one, right, Atmo has been zero gearing. means you don't have much borrowings.
Yeah.
In fact, out of your 45 million ringgit of current asset, 33 million are actually cash. Are you going to use the cash, or do you plan to reward the shareholders in terms of special dividend, or how?
We might declare a special dividend, but then of course that's subject to the board approval and shareholder approval. But then what is more important is we want to spare the money mainly for two things. I think first thing are basically related to M&A, where we believe the M&A that we are looking at is on three perspectives. The first basically is complement us in terms of talents, where it's always about the right talent so they can deliver the good products. Then secondly will be on the technologies. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to capitalize and leverage on some of the partners that already build the capabilities. Then number three will be the market expansions. For example, we have set up this Agmo Singapore entity, but for us to build presence from zero, it will take time. So we're also exploring this possibility to basically work with our local partners. That's M&A is the first part. The second part where basically we also want to spend the cash maybe more intensify in terms of R&D. Technology is a key differentiator to differentiate any technology companies. So that's why back then we didn't create too much of patents. We have one of the patents being granted is under utility innovations for using blockchain to conduct elections. We only have one, but we want to create more patents so they basically create a higher entry barriers for the competitors to replicate what we are doing. So that's basically the part that we want to focus at the moment, as in the M&A to grow a business. Then secondly, on the R&D technology side, then only we'll talk about the dividends. Yeah.
Okay. Last but not least, one last question. Where is Agmo heading to in the next 3 years?
Definitely, we want to focus on what we are doing. Actually, our mission is very simple. We want to use technology to make people's life better. Then we want to do it in a much larger scale. So regional expansions will be one of the dreams, but we have to start somewhere. So we choose Singapore, which is a no-brainer due to it's so near and due to the currency exchange rate is very sexy. So with that, basically, we hope to bring in more technologies that we created and proven in Malaysia into a regional place, not start from Singapore, maybe in the future expand to Australia's, New Zealand's and European markets. That's how we see it, because the good thing about technology is so scalable, especially when it's a software as a service model. You can build here, everyone else in the world can consume that. So I think that's basically where we are heading to.
And I suppose your products in the beginning make more sense from a G2G kind of approach, right? Where you go in and help the government agencies in a new country to build up their digitalizations effort, and then slowly you only introduce the other elements of your Agmo offerings.
Actually, G2G is something more on a MyEG business. Ours one is really a lot in terms of corporate, and also now I think on SME side also.
Okay.
That's what we are doing. So governments is we have some government agency as our clients, but that probably contribute less than 5% of our revenues. Our major focus segments are the financial services, especially the fintech companies, and also logistic companies, followed by the healthcare and also oil and gas. These are the four industries.
Speaking of that, right, because you mentioned you have 4 different kinds of customers.
Yeah.
Do you have a breakdown of how many percent all these customers are giving you today?
Wow, but maybe just a very rough one.
Just a very rough one.
I don't. I just a gut feeling. I think that's maybe my CFO will kill me. Yeah. That's talking about something like that lah.
Okay, so what is this 40, 30 and all that?
Yeah, I think 40% mostly will be from the financial services. Financial services that relate to those, a lot of fintechs and so on. Then secondly, 30% will be related to oil and gas related. Then 20% probably on the logistic related and 10% on the healthcare related. But of course, this is not talking about the 100% of revenue. This is talking about, let's say, certain percentage, 60-70% out of our total revenue. Because we are so diversified, right? In a way that we serve a lot of clients from other industries as well. But this is, again, just a gut feeling.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, AK. Thanks for your time. All the best on your business, and hopefully I can get you on the show again next time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
All the best.
Thank you.